No matter what your situation is, no matter how deep in the mud you think you are, God can pull you out. If you have wandered away into the sand, if you're being beaten down by the storms, turn to God. Ask Him to help you turn back to the right path where your feet will be on solid ground, and He will answer you. There is no situation that God can't protect you. He may not spare you from difficulty, but He will guide you through it to the other side. He will hold your hand, and you will never be alone. Acts chapter 2 verse 27 quotes David when he says, "You have made known to me the paths of life. You will make me full of gladness with your presence." God will shine a light upon your path so that you know where to go. All He asks is that you be brave and faithful enough to follow Him. When you do, His presence will make itself known to you, and you can be assured that He is beside you and in front of you and behind you. He sees all things and knows all things. You'll be surrounded on all sides with God's love and protection like an impenetrable bubble. The world will mock you for your faith. You'll be an outcast among unbelievers and sometimes even believers. But my friends, don't let that stop you from putting your faith in God. John chapter 15 verse 19 says, "If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." This is a difficult verse to swallow. We don't want the world to hate us. We want to fit in. We want to be like everyone else. But notice these words, "I chose you out of the world." My friends, we are different because God chose us to be His people. To receive God's love and acceptance is the greatest gift in the world. Stand firm on the solid rock of His love. You are most likely to judge God faithful when all seems to be well and lines seem to be falling in pleasant places. This is not unique to you alone, but is a norm that I've noticed with a good number of believers. Most believers find it easier to give thanks when all is bloomy and favorable than when things are not going well. We don't doubt God's faithfulness and good intentions when things are going as expected, but when things go sour, we accuse God of being unfaithful, unjust, and impartial. In such times, when your hope seems to be deferred, you're prone to hearing and giving into so many other voices. You begin listening to those constantly telling you that God has probably forgotten you. You begin to heed those bugging you in your head, telling you that if God were to answer you, He probably would have done so a long time ago. All of these voices are from the enemy. He does not represent anything that can be true. He only speaks lies. You may be in a situation right now that feels like the end of a tunnel, but do you know what is commonly said at the end of tunnels? There is a light that is at the end of every tunnel. At times, it looks like you're facing the worst challenge and feels like you may not be able to come out of it alive. But God is faithful, even if you are unfaithful to Him. He doesn't pay you back with unfaithfulness. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 13 says, "If we are faithless, He will remain faithful, for He cannot disown Himself." If you only think of God as being faithful when you experience good tidings, then what separates you from the unbelievers? As a believer, you have been called to rejoice and give thanks in all situations, whether good or bad, sweet or sour, or smooth or rough. You are to bless His name and adore Him at all times. You're not expected to give thanks because it is a responsibility, but to do so out of your appraisal of God's commitment in both good and bad situations. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 18 says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." It is God's